It's Wednesday, it's the NFL Presidential Address in entirely new format. It's myself and Ralph Michaels will take apart every game on the board. No Kelly anymore on the NFL Presidential Address, and yes, it's a shame. I am more upset than the rest of you guys, but it's the right decision. Kelly, Gianni the Greek, and Marco have their own show. It's called Bet On It. It's an NFL preview show just like this. And it's an amazing show, guys. It's must-watch television. So with that said, Kelly's not going to be doing 2 NFL shows a week. She is extremely busy, and it's a better decision for the Wager Talk team. As you can see, I have new images for today's show, except they spelled Presidential Address wrong. I will be getting that fixed for next week. It's a Z instead of an S, but we could live with the image the way it is. Let me bring Ralph Michaels in and get straight to what we're calling the Primetime Games. Ralph, how are you, my friend? I'm excited to have you, man. This is a big deal for me.
You know, Prez, I'm excited to be here with you on this show. And I think we're starting it off the right way. We're going to knock off the 3 primetime games first, give our audience the most exciting previews. Let's get right to it,
that's the best thing about you, Ralph. No time wasting, no small talk. Let's talk football. Philadelphia on the road after a heartbreaking and almost embarrassing loss against Detroit at home last week. They now find themselves at +4 to 4.5 with the over and under at 46. Ralph, what's interesting to me here is the line move. It came out at Green Bay at -3, and we have had a ton of money coming in on Green Bay. This is an extremely lopsided betting game, and I think it's indicative of the fact that the general public have been betting Green Bay all year and are pretty pleased with the results. I tend to see this as a bit of an overreaction move. I think this line is going to come back down. You know, Green Bay got lucky to get a win against Minnesota. They put up 21 points early, and then they couldn't really score again. Kirk Cousins' brain cramp away from losing that game outright. And let's be honest here, Denver could have come out of Green Bay with a win too. I don't think this Green Bay team is as good as everyone else thinks, and I understand Philadelphia is injured. But they are the Whoa! Yeah, thank you, brother. It's September, flu season. As I was saying, Philadelphia, they're still Philadelphia. They're a really good football team. I think this game should be at least at the most -3. If I'm going to get that extra point of value on Philadelphia, I'm going to take it. What do you like in this game?
Well, Prez, we're going to butt heads game number 1 of our new show, but you know, I do have an issue with the Philadelphia injuries. It's not as if though you lost 1 wide receiver. It's not as if though you lost 1 defensive tackle. You have cluster injuries in those positions, and that's tough to recoup from. You know, losing to Detroit, not embarrassing because you did have an 86-yard edge. The reason you lost because you were a -2 turnovers. I look at Green Bay, and yes, they've needed their defense to get them the win. Aaron Rodgers has gotten off to some hot starts, but has faded. This is the only 3-0 ATS team against an 0-3 ATS team. And I'm going to tell you that the home team is only 50.8%. Why am I telling you that? Well, because I'm a numbers guy, and I know someone's going to ask the question somewhere, what happens when a 3-0 ATS team plays?
I was just about
so
to
there's
ask
no
that.
real edge. Yeah, so there's no betting edge. But again, at least our viewers now know that. You know, I look at it, and Philadelphia had 7 drops last week from their wide receivers at home. I think that's going to continue on the road. I've got a Philadelphia stat. They're 0-12 against the spread after a loss as a home favorite when they had more third downs than punts. That means they were a productive team but lost. So they're 0-12 in that role. And let's not forget the most important ATS system there is. People look at the first few Thursday night games and they say, oh, the home team lost week 1, the home team lost week 2. And the favorite lost week 3. What's the difference? All 3 of the first Thursday night games were division games. How's this for a number, Prez, to start off our new show? Non-division Thursday home favorites, 36,
Wow.
14, and 3, 72%. And why? You're not familiar. You have a short week. You don't play this team twice a year.
He's Ralph Michaels. I'm the Prez. You're watching the NFL Presidential Address, new format, and I'm excited about it. Listeners out there, just to let you know, I am actually betting both the side and the total in this game. I released it on wagertalk.com. They are plays that you have to pay for, but I'll give them out for free. I'm taking Philadelphia plus 4.5. And I am also betting over the total in this game. I think we're going to see a game get into the mid-50s here. Ralph, next game we're talking about is Dallas against New Orleans, and I find this game fascinating. It came out at New Orleans plus 3 points, and we had an absolute ton of volume bets come in on Dallas on Monday and Tuesday, and yet the line moved in the opposite direction. This is really important, guys, because what this tells us is that the general public really likes Dallas. They're looking at this game and they're saying Dallas is the better team. They're 3-0, and New Orleans has an injured quarterback. What the wise guys are telling us is New Orleans is the bet. It's called a reverse line move when they get a ton of volume on one game, yet the line moves against that volume. There's a lot of money and a lot of syndicates coming down on New Orleans, and I'm going to tell you flat out, Ralph, I like Dallas in this game. I don't think I'm going to get to the window, but here's my take. I think Dallas has one of the best O-lines in football. I think Dallas is a tough team to run against. If you look at what New Orleans has done this year, they let Houston march down the field over a 20-second span to go ahead late in the game against New Orleans at home. And New Orleans was lucky to come out with a win. Then New Orleans plays Seattle with Teddy Bridgewater in the game, and let's be honest here, 4 of those touchdowns that New Orleans scored, all were flukes. One was a kick return, one was a fumble recovery. The third one was a doozy, a field goal kick, yet Seattle had an illegal formation on defense, therefore allowing New Orleans to get a first down, which they punched it in and scored. And then the 4th touchdown came because Seattle went for it on 4th and 1 from their 30 and missed, giving New Orleans a short field. I'm not sold on this New Orleans team. I am moving in the direction of being completely sold on this Dallas team. I think Dallas is a better football team. They came into New Orleans last year as a dog and won. They now come in as a favorite. I think they're going to get the job done, and I'm even more liking this play at minus 2.5. Ralph, I hand it to you.
Well, you look at the technical players, and you have Dallas, who's covered 6 straight as an away favorite against the Saints, who have failed to cover 5 straight games at home. That's unheard of. But you can't really compare these teams stat-wise. Yes, New Orleans had a very fake win. They got outgained by 250 yards last week. They scored that early punt return touchdown. They got set up in good field position, and Teddy Bridgewater was able to play from ahead the entire game. Dallas, to me, is the best team in the NFC. The offense, the defense, the special teams, you put it together, I have them as the number 1 team and number 3 in the league behind KC and New England. But you look at who Dallas has played this year. The Giants, not a playoff team. Washington, we saw what a disaster they are. Miami, the worst team in football. They've played the easiest schedule, or a easiest 5 schedule there is. You look at what New Orleans has played. Houston, at the Rams, at Seattle, potentially 3 playoff teams, including back-to-back road games. They've played one of the toughest schedules. So that tells me, boom, you cannot look at the stats. I do have a couple very interesting stats here. Teddy Bridgewater against non-conference, against non-division opponents, 17-2 against the spread. Now, a lot of that goes back to the Minnesota in 2014 and 15, but he did get that win against Seattle. So there's something about a quarterback that knows how to win and cover that gives him an extra bit of confidence. The New Orleans Saints, also 16-2 after week one against undefeated teams. When they're playing very good foes, they play very well at home. With those numbers set on New Orleans, I'm torn between this game. I think it's going to be a lower scoring game. Dallas moved the ball very easily against some of the worst defenses in football. I think they try to establish the run. I think New Orleans goes with Kamara a lot. Doesn't want to put Bridgewater in harm's way.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with you, Ralph. And the total has been bet up. It came out as a consensus opening line at 45. We now have a 47 on the board. So I'm with you as well. And I think New Orleans' defense is a lot better than most people feel. And especially, it's interesting about defenses because teams like New Orleans and Kansas City, they're going to put up so many points so quickly that the other teams are going to get more time on the field offensively, and they're also going to be playing from behind a lot, which is going to ultimately skew the numbers. So I agree. I think the under is the play too. Ralph, this game is really a must-win for both Pittsburgh and Cincinnati. It's the Monday night game, and the consensus opening line came out at Pittsburgh -4.5. It's -4 now, with a total of 44 on the board. I might have something on this game by next Monday. Right now, I just don't. The problem I'm having is, Pittsburgh, man, 5 takeaways against San Francisco last week, and they couldn't get the job done. And yet you look at the Cincinnati team. They go into Seattle. They almost come out with a win. They went into Buffalo last week, down 14-0 at the half, came out, looked sensational in the second half, tied the game up, and did lose it at the end. But what we're seeing with Cincinnati, minus the San Fran game, was a team that actually is trying their best. Unlike the New York Jets and Miami, this team wants to win. My gut feel is saying Cincinnati plus the 4, and it's going to be a field goal game, but I'm likely laying off of this one. Where are you going?
Yeah, again, I agree with you. 2-0-3 teams, is Cincinnati expecting to be better than 0-3? Well, everyone's expecting to 0-3, but Pittsburgh's the one that you have to worry about the mentality on the team. You went to San Francisco, you got outgained by 197 yards. You played Seattle at home, you got outgained by 164 yards. You played New England, you got outgained by 157 yards. They're getting outgained by 173 yards per game this season. Mason Rudolph, 12 of 19. Will they get better at home? Maybe, but if you were handed 5 turnovers and you had the ball for 13 possessions last week and you only had 11 first downs, that's a concern to me. Andy Dalton, to me, looked great in the Seattle game. He looked like a new quarterback under first-year head coach Zach Taylor. Then losing to San Fran, not a problem. San Fran's a playoff team. Losing to Buffalo, you and I talked. I have Buffalo as one of the top defenses in the country. They gained 17 first downs against them. I think Cincinnati is the play to go. Cincinnati has covered their last 6 on the road. Pittsburgh has failed to cover their last 6 as a favorite. They're 3-9 as a home favorite. I do like Cincinnati.
He's Ralph Michaels. You can find him at wagertalk.com. I'm the Prez. That's my home as well. You're watching the NFL Presidential Address. Ralph, we're going to take a very quick commercial break. It'll be the only one in the show today, and then we'll right back with the early game segment. Hey everybody, it's the Prez. Thanks so much for watching. This show is very important to me. It's probably my favorite show that I do all week, and I am excited to be doing it with Ralph Michaels. Just real quick, a bunch of promos for you all. Marco, Teddy, and Dave Koken. Dave Koken is 16-6 to start college football, 9-5 to start NFL. Marco D'Angelo is on a 16-4 football run in total. And Teddy covers the best NFL expert over at Wager Talk for the last 3 years, is 60% on the season in both footballs. Their regular price for 7 days is $99. You can get any one of those three guys for only $79. Check out the scroll at the bottom of the show throughout the show for their promo codes. It is TC79 for Teddy Covers. That's TC79 for Teddy Covers. It's Marco79 for Marco D'Angelo, and it is Koken79 for Dave Koken. That's $79 for 7 days of any one of their plays. Ralph, you enjoying the show so far?
Oh, I can talk NFL and college football all day long.
What do you prefer?
I prefer college. I think you could find a little more value in college, and there's situations where you can find value that the public doesn't know, giving you an edge. In the NFL, it's how you analyze the numbers. There's no hidden information when you're looking at the NFL.
Okay, my brother, let's get to the next segment. Early games. Houston minus 4.5 against Carolina with a total of 46.5. And Ralph, I want to stop and talk to you about just betting a particular trend, we actually see this in 3 or 4 spots this week. So let's talk about that, and then we'll get deep into this game because this game is relevant to that. You know, when teams get a big player injured, and this happens a lot in the NBA as well, you know, a Cam Newton goes out, a Ben Roethlisberger goes out, etc., etc., you usually come back and bet on that team in the first game. Pittsburgh covered against San Fran last week. Carolina with Allen behind the gun looked phenomenal last week. We had Jacksonville with Minshew winning that game outright. What's interesting is the second game. The second game is usually a bet against in this type of spot. We had all of the teams with their quarterbacks injured last week. New Orleans covered, Jacksonville covered, Carolina covered, and Pittsburgh covered for a 4-0 with new quarterbacks coming in. I don't know if we're going to see an 0-4 this week. I've already mentioned that I like Cincinnati against Pittsburgh. I like Houston here, Ralph. I like Houston for many reasons. Firstly, I think they're one of the best teams in football. I think they have an extremely well-balanced offense. Their defense is very stout. I don't think Allen is going to know what's coming his way against J.J. Watt and the boys. And I think Houston is at home. And at 4.5 feels a little short for me. I think you've got the second game with Allen behind center. I think we're going to see a massive regression. I like Houston minus the 4.5.
Well, you know, Prez, just to expand on your talk about I call it the injury system, and when you're playing on a team, much of the reason those quarterbacks have success is because there's no film on them. They don't know what the game plan's going to be. They don't know his tendencies. They don't know which way he likes to roll in the pocket. So now you have a week of game film, which sets up the defense in a great situation. You know, I'm going to look to play the unders in most of these games. You look at Carolina. Yeah, they had 8 sacks against a mobile quarterback in Arizona, but they've had 11 sacks the last 2 weeks, and we know what Deshaun Watson has gone through. I mean, 2 sacks last week was like a week off after having, 8 straight games of getting sacked 4 or more times. But we also saw the Houston defense come alive. J.J. Watt struggled early in the season, but you expect that. You can't I shouldn't say struggled, because when you lose one of the best defensive ends on the other side on the line in Javon Clowney, and he's now in Seattle, that means J.J. Watt's getting double teamed every single play. It took him a few weeks to get up to speed, and he had a couple sacks last week, and the Houston defense now has 9 sacks the last 2 weeks. I think Allen is a legitimate NFL quarterback. And for those people, you know, just going back and talking about last week's game, if you remember back in college, Allen beat out Kyler Murray, and Murray transferred. So he proved in college he was the better quarterback, and he very well may be, you know, I think he is an NFL quarterback. I think he's actually better on the field than a non-100% Cam Newton. And, unless Cam Newton, when Cam Newton against Tampa Bay had the ball at the 1 and they try a stretch play to McCaffrey instead of a quarterback sneak, Cam Newton shouldn't have been in the game. If your play's not a quarterback sneak, he shouldn't have been in. So I think Murray, a healthy Murray, a dynamic McCaffrey has Carolina move the ball. But in this game, again, I agree. Back-to-back road games are tough enough. Back-to-back road games with less time to prep against a defense like Houston. Houston having film on Murray. There's only one way I can lean on the game.
Yeah, and I know you called Allen Murray twice, but we get the point. Baltimore -7 against Cleveland, 45.5 is the total. Freddie Kitchens is way over his head. I thought the play calling offensively in the Cleveland game last week was really, really bad. Here's another take watching that game. I think Cleveland is going to struggle, Ralph. I think they just don't have the tackles to protect Baker Mayfield. We saw the edge rush last week against Cleveland, and it was very successful. And what we really saw is what I call the Derek Carr syndrome. We saw Baker Mayfield move out of the pocket too early all game long. He literally had the jitters. He was scared last game, and that took him outside of the pocket. Baker Mayfield needs to stay in the pocket for Cleveland to have any success. With that said, I don't think Baltimore is as good a team as we've seen. They put up a lot of points against Kansas City last week. Some of those points were phony. They were lucky to get out alive against Arizona. This is an absolute must-win game for Cleveland, period. If they want any chance to catch Baltimore for that division lead. They do not want to start the season 1-3. I've got a hungry Cleveland team against a fat and sassy Baltimore team, to quote Marco. It's a division rivalry game. I'm getting 7 points, and I'm going to take them. What do you like?
Well, I think you said it very well with Cleveland, that Freddie Kitchens is out of his element. Listen, he was a offensive assistant at the beginning of last year. They fire their head coach. He becomes an interim OC. The first time he's ever been an OC was 8 games or 9 games last year. He has success. What happens? He gets hired as the head coach, and he names himself his own OC calling the plays. So you have an OC who never went through a training camp as an OC, who's now doing double duty as a head coach. I just think it's an ego trip. He needed to step down and do one or the other. We see this all the time with young coaches. McVay is probably the only one where it's worked. So completely agree, he's outmatched. Baker moved out of the pocket way too much, but I'll tell you this. There's no defensive line like the Rams. Other teams may get more sacks than the Rams, but with Aaron Donald in the middle of the line, no team gets interior pressure like the Rams and what Donald does. That changes the way a quarterback has to act and has to roll out of the pocket. When a defensive end rushes, you can push that defensive end further back, and a quarterback gets up and steps up into the pocket. With Aaron Donald, you can't do that. So we will see a better Baker Mayfield. I have no concern with that.
I agree.
And again, this is just, I think there's too many points. People have made too much of Lamar Jackson. Listen, you played the historically bad Miami Dolphins. Last year, Arizona was the worst team in football the last 10 years. You played them. Kansas City was the number 31 defense last year. You've played them. You are now facing a defense, a legitimate defense for the first time. If the Browns get healthy, missing middle linebacker Kirksey, huge. He calls the plays. They're not going to be able to replace that. But they had 4 backup secondary players. They were missing their entire secondary against San Fran. Both cornerbacks, both safeties, and they still held the Rams to 345 yards. If the Browns get back 2 or 3 of those defensive players, I like them. If they don't, I can't back them, although I think the situation favors them.
He's Ralph Michaels. I'm the Prez. You're watching the NFL Presidential Address. It's up every single Wednesday at Wager Talk TV, our YouTube channel. Ralph, New York Giants must be licking their chops. I mean, they actually have a shot to get back in the playoff hunt here. Miracle win last week against Tampa Bay. Bruce Arians was out of his mind, but with that said, the kicker needs to get it through the uprights there. Now they face Washington, and this Washington team is reeling. Let's be honest here. This team is really just missing people to. They're just missing an offensive line, flat out. They can't protect the quarterback. They are no help on the run. The wide receivers in Washington aren't getting the job done. Their running game doesn't really exist, and their quarterback is mediocre at best. They do have a fairly decent defense, middle of the pack. But I think the New York Giants have to come into this game feeling really, really good. They got a lot of grief drafting Daniel, and he looked amazing. And his confidence on that game-winning touchdown draw, it wasn't a draw, it turned out to be a draw, but a lot of quarterbacks don't run there. I think the New York Giants are coming into this game feeling really good about themselves. They're 1-2 on the season. They know they can beat this Washington team to put them 2-2 on the year, and I think that's where my money is going to go. This play is a half a bet on New York Giants, and it's a half a bet against Washington. I think Washington might be one of the worst teams in the league. I like the Giants -3.
I'm going to lean the other way. I don't have a strong play on this, but if I had to make a choice, I think the loss of Saquon Barkley is going to be huge. Daniel Jones came in a situation, again, no film on him, against a very poor defense. They put up 384 yards. They won the game 32-31. They still got outgained by 115 yards. Teams that are off an away win, like both Houston, I didn't mention this stat, and the New York Giants, if they came back from a 10-point or more halftime deficit like the Giants did, you're 7-13 against the spread the next week. They came back and outscored the Bucs 22-3 in the second half. And again, you look at Washington and you look who they've played. Philadelphia, playoff team. Dallas, a playoff team. The Bears, the best defense in football. I think the step down in class helps them. I think getting away out of Washington helps them. I think McLaurin stepping up as a go-to wide receiver helps him. And I think Case Keenum's going to have much more time on his hands than last week. After the Bears rush, he's going to feel as if though he has a few extra seconds to pass each time. I just lean Washington because I think they're not as bad as we saw against the Bears. I don't think the Giants are as good as we looked. Extra film on Jones and no Barkley puts the Giants back to one of the most mediocre. I mean, they may be the most mediocre skill players now if you add the running backs and wide receivers combined.
Yeah, and a great take, Ralph. I also like the under in this game. 49 seems to be a big number, especially for a Washington team that's struggling to move the ball. Miami is at +16 against the LA Chargers, and the LA Chargers just have to be disappointed. Is it the Melvin Gordon not playing? I don't know, but it looks to me like Phillip Rivers is not the same Phillip Rivers as we have seen. With that said, and this is really important, Ralph, we have seen many years where the Los Angeles Chargers or the San Diego Chargers come out losing their first 2, 3, 4 games and then go on an absolute monster tear. It's the right time for them to play Miami. They got to feel like they're going to win this football game and really get that taste in their mouth again. But Phillip Rivers is just making bad decisions, Ralph. Ridiculous loss to Detroit with him throwing an interception into the end zone. He did the same thing in week 1. Miami is basically waved the flag, and I think it's a matter of them welcoming teams with open arms. Come to Joe Robbie, beat us, go home, have dinner somewhere on the way. With that said, I can't bet this game. I got a bad feeling about San Diego, about the Chargers. We're going to talk about my survivor pick later on, and everything says that you're supposed to take the Chargers this week. I just got a bad feeling here, Ralph.
I agree. Philip Livers looks to step back. You got to remember, though, they're missing Derwin James in the secondary. And while they don't make a big deal of Melvin Gordon being gone, Eckler has done a fine job, but Eckler is not an outlet where he can dump the ball off. And that's what I think he's missing. He's missing a running back that he could dump the ball off to. I thought that would be Justin Jackson. He's rushed, but he's not getting those receptions. So he's uncomfortable doing that. But I agree. I don't want any part of the San Diego team going to Miami laying this. Here's a number for the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins have scored 16 points. The Miami Dolphins have allowed 18 touchdowns. I can't play the game.
Yeah, I'm with you there. This game is a straight pass. Oakland is +7 against Indianapolis. There are a couple of 6.5s on the board, and the total is 45. What jumps out to me right off the bat is this number. Indianapolis -7. Once Andrew Luck went out, I didn't expect to see an Indianapolis -7 all year. Even hosting the Jets or Miami. I think this is a big number. They look great last week. Jacoby Brissett looks better than what I anticipated he will look. But I don't see this team as a scoring juggernaut. They have an incredible offensive line, probably the best in football. I think they're going to run the ball a lot in this game. I look to play this game under the total. And as far as the side goes, I have to take the points here, Ralph. I don't love Oakland. I'm not going to bet Oakland. But if a gun's held to my head, I'm going to take the points because I don't think Indianapolis yet is worthy of laying 7 against anybody. I think they're just going to be a team that will likely play to the under all year, a team that will likely score on average in the low 20s all year. I think if we can get 17 points out of Oakland, they're going to cover. So I'm going to take Oakland, and I'm looking to play the under.
Well, I'm gonna have an overlean at the end of the show when we give you some TNA, some trends and angles and systems that are league-wide systems. And for those, if you watched Drew Martin and Prez and I yesterday, you know which way I lean on this. I can't back the Oakland Raiders on the road. They're 2-14 straight up. They're 3-12 against the spread away from home. They're allowing 30.6 points per game their last 15 road games. And I think the Colts defense is legit. They gave up 435 yards against the Chargers early, but they've turned it around. They played well against Tennessee. Atlanta, again, the Colts are going to be a give up some yards between the 20s and let's play solid red zone defense. And that's what you're going to get with the Colts. But it's a situation where, I'm not interested in the Colts, but I can't back the Oakland Raiders away from home, especially on a second of back-to-back road trips. And the Raiders aren't going to play another home game till Detroit. I mean, They're going to play 5 straight games away from home and have a bye. So 6 straight weeks away from home. I think that's a very, very that's a very, very difficult situation. And again, I don't know how much this has to do with it, but we saw reports in the Las Vegas newspaper where Gruden's building his house, where Carr's building his house in Vegas. They're both in an area called Southern Highlands. So, they already have this move to Vegas on their mind. Now you're on the road for 6 straight road trips. They lose a couple of this, and I just see this season getting away from them.
Detroit, Ralph, +6, 6.5 against Kansas City with an over and under of 54. And here's my quick take. Detroit's winning games they usually lose. I think that's probably a sign of the toughness and competitiveness of their coach. They're getting it done, man. That was a big, big win last week against Philadelphia, and they could have and should have beat Arizona in week 1. With that said, you don't want to get in front of this Kansas City train. This team, is there a total big enough to prevent me from betting the over? Yeah, 70, 60. It's 54. I don't know what to do on the side here. I actually think Detroit is a good team, and I think Detroit is playing well. I don't want to take a Kansas City on the road at -6. This is not going to be an undefeated Kansas City team. They are going to lose some games. I think the number is too high, but I don't want to step in front of Kansas City. So my take on this game is to play the over, and I understand it is at 54. But if you watch the Baltimore-Kansas City game, that game was playing to the stone cold under for the entire first half. And then they lit it up. Kansas City can score quick in minutes. And we know Matthew Stafford can zip the ball around the field. I don't think I'm getting to the window on this game, but my lean is on the over.
You know, we don't talk about domes very often, but a dome can be a very neutralizing effect on a quarterback. And this is going to be Mahomes' first dome game. He didn't play a dome game last time. His road games at Jacksonville against a fan base that's lethargic. The Oakland fan base was a little louder, and we saw him struggle against Oakland. He had the one quarter where he set every record there was and scored 4 touchdowns, but the other 3 quarters he was scoreless. Being the third road game in 4 weeks, being the first dome you're playing in, being a Detroit team that now has some confidence, and Matthew Stafford at 65%, I think can get it done. But again, can Detroit score enough? KC has now scored 26 or more points in 19 straight games, and Detroit has only scored 22 or more points twice or 3 times in the last 13 games. So, you know, if you're going to give KC their 26 or 30, and you think you like Detroit, you're certainly going to have a correlated parlay with the over being in that exact 54 range.
He's Ralph Michaels. I'm the Prez. It's the NFL Presidential Address. Real quick, guys, as you can see on the scroll right there. Rob Vino is on a 20-6 college football run. You can get 30 days of all his plays for 50% off. Head over to sportsmemo.com and use the promo code VINO50. Ralph, New England -7 against Buffalo. The total is 42.5. It's been bet down from 44. We spoke about this show already on the Betting Edge yesterday. So, you know, I'm going to just move on super quick. I like Buffalo in this spot. But like Kansas City, I don't bet against New England. So this is a layoff game for me from a side perspective. But I think Buffalo, and I know they've played nobody. They literally have played nobody, and I get that. But like you said at the beginning of the show, this is one of the best defenses in football. New England has an incredible defense as well. I already know that you like the under in this game. Even with the fact that both these defenses are maybe legit top 5 defenses in football, I actually like the over in this game. You don't get New England at 42.5 ever. And I don't care if New England is playing the all-star defense. They're still going to put up in the 20s. I think Josh Allen's a good quarterback. I think we're going to get 17 to 20 out of Buffalo as well. I like the over here, Ralph.
Well, you know, you look at talking about getting a total in the 40s. New England is only 3-11-1 over under their last 14 games. New England is 9-23-1 over under, 72% to the under when they're an away favorite. And, Brady's had it so easy facing the Jets with Falk, and their defense kept him in, facing Miami. And, and they just jumped out against Pittsburgh 20-0 that they scored 13 points. I think it's sort of shell shock here, going on the road and facing a good defense. And again, I think Belichick's going to shut down any young quarterback. Yeah, Josh Allen saw him a couple times, but didn't cover either game last year. So we do disagree on the total here.
Yeah, Ralph, you made some great points with your trends on the under for New England. My counter to that is that those were in the high 40s. Those numbers were 47, 48, 51, 53. I don't know offhand how many times New England has been in the 42 zone, but it feels low to me. Tennessee against Atlanta, Ralph, and here's what I know. Atlanta has incredible talent, and they just can't seem to get the job done, but they do get the job done at home. Tennessee is one of those teams that actually match up well against offensive juggernauts, and the reason is, even though they can't keep pace, we're going to see a heaping dose of Derrick Henry. They're going to really try keep this Atlanta team this Atlanta offense off the field. They're going to slow this game down to a crawl, and I think it's literally their only way to beat Atlanta. Tennessee is in must-win mode. Atlanta's in must-win mode. The total is 45.5, and I like the under in this game. But I actually will be getting to the window here, Ralph. I'm going to be betting Atlanta. Atlanta at home is just a very tough team to play against. I feel like 4 is a short number. I think Tennessee, I had high hopes for Tennessee, and I think they have an incredible defense. But I really feel like they're going to struggle to put up more than 13 to 17 points, and I feel like Atlanta will get the job done. -4 for the Prez.
I agree with almost everything you said, Prez. I don't know if I've ever seen a mobile quarterback, and Mariota's not, I mean, he's not Lamar Jackson, but he's a very mobile quarterback. He's been sacked 17 times. 3 games, a mobile quarterback 17 times against Jacksonville, Indianapolis, and Cleveland. Now, I mean, the Falcons only have 5 sacks on the year, so he's not going to get the same pressure he's accustomed to. But you talked about Mayfield being scared and looking scared. Well, I'll tell you what, you get sacked 17 times, it's in your head already that you need your clock, your internal clock, quarterbacks 1,001, 1,002, and you're looking to get rid of the ball because you think you're going to get sacked. So I think we're going to have to see if Mariota can get it out of his head. It's certainly not going to help playing a third road game in 4 days and playing in a dome where it's going to be difficult to hear the cadence and change the plays. So, in the situation, I do agree. I think the Falcons are a team that, they did enough against a banged-up Philly team at home. Losing to Minnesota and Indy on the road aren't horrific. But I'll tell you what, you talk about them being 1-2. How many people realize the Falcons went to Minnesota, outgained them? Went to Indianapolis, outgained them. They're one of only 6 teams that have outgained all 3 of their foes this year. So some hidden value with the Falcons because of that.
He's Ralph Michaels, I'm the Prez, and now we're getting to the late game segment. Graphic change, look at that. It's like a professional show, Ralph. Tampa Bay against the Rams. Sandwich game for the Rams? I don't know if it's a sandwich game. I mean, they really did. It's not like they got so high up for Cleveland, but they've got a big game next week. Tampa Bay here. Last week I told you guys in the money line segment to take the New York Giants on the money line, and they covered and they won that bet for us. And here's my take on Tampa Bay, and here is why I actually stay off most sides with Tampa Bay. Jameis Winston can go out on any given day and look like Joe Montana, look like Tom Brady. I mean, this guy could, 1 out of 5, 6 games, he looks like the next coming. The remaining 4 out of those 5 games, he's a sieve. He doesn't think clearly. He makes bad reads. He makes bad plays, and you literally never know what you're going to get with this Tampa Bay team. It's why I can't take the Rams. -10 is too big a number for me. If Tampa Bay has the ball down by 14 with 2 minutes to go, I think they get the back door here, Ralph. I can't take Tampa Bay either, though. I'm not going to step in the way of the Rams. This Rams team, Ralph, I know you said Dallas is the best team in the NFC. I disagree. The Rams, sure, Gurley's not the same, yet they're still running the ball well. Goff's not whipping the ball downfield, but he's throwing a lot of passes. It's their defense that has improved so much. Dante Fowler, Aaron Donald, their secondary, Ralph, probably one of the veteran secondaries in all of football. I'm not going to touch the side here, but I really do like the over in this game. The Ralphs, that's funny. The Rams were held down in the first half against Cleveland last week, but we saw what they could do in the second half. Tampa Bay does not have a good defense at all. I think the Rams are going to be able to put up in the 30s, and I think Jameis Winston and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will keep pace to a degree. I'm getting this number at 49.5. I'm taking it over the total.
Well, you look at Tampa, and they're one of the worst teams historically on the road going 3-16 their last 19 road games. They did, however, get that third win earlier this year going to Carolina on Thursday. You know, I truly believe we're going to see a transformation for Jameis Winston. Bruce Arians is a quarterback guru. I think he will have Winston completing in the mid 60%. I think he will get Winston to cut down on his interceptions. And I actually think they can keep it close. I think they have an underrated defense. And, you know, the Rams offense hasn't impressed me. You talked about Gurley. No, he's not impressive. Goff, you know, the reason I call Dallas the best team in the NFC over the Rams is because the Rams are two different teams at home and on the road. At home, they eked out a win against Carolina. They eked out a win against Cleveland. And how's this for a Goff stat? You look back at Jared Goff since the start of last year. So we are now 19 games in. At home, he's completing 68% of his passes with a 23-3 ratio. On the road, 61% with a 13-12 ratio. He is so very mediocre on the road that I think they're going to struggle and lose a few games there. But again, at home, I think the offense does get going. And I do like your overplay there, Prez.
Thanks, my friend. Guys, Marco is on a 16-4 football run. Yes, 16 wins, 4 losses. You can get the next 7 days of all his plays. There's the promo code. There, somewhere there. Marco 79. Arizona -5 against Seattle. Total in this game is 48. I'm going to be real quick here. I don't think Seattle is a very good team at all, but they are coming off of a loss. I'm sure you've got some good trends on that. And I don't think Arizona is a very good team at all. I'm playing the under. Go ahead, Ralph.
You know, Russell Wilson, 425 yards at Pittsburgh, 515 yards against New Orleans. Seattle, 13-4 ATS off a home loss. Arizona was a team that was historically bad last year, getting outgained by 119 yards per game. They didn't turn into a winning team overnight. I like Seattle.
Minnesota against Chicago, and I love this game. I love this game here. Chicago, it came out at -3. It's been bet down to -2. This is an absolutely crucial game for both teams. Both teams have lost to Green Bay already, so they're 0-1 in division. This division is literally going to come down to head-to-head games. Here's my take, Ralph. Minnesota is a better team than Chicago, flat out. Chicago has a better defense, but barely better defense. Minnesota's defense is really, really good. Chicago's offense is anemic. I understand they put up a bunch of points against Washington. 21 of those points came off of turnovers. We saw Minnesota go to Green Bay, forget to show up in the first quarter, get down 21 points, and show the moxie and the confidence to come back in that game, give themselves a chance to win until Kirk Cousins lost his mind and threw a ridiculous pass in the end zone at the end of the game. I think Trubisky is struggling to throw the ball inside of the pocket. I think Minnesota's defense is going to be all over him. I think Dalvin Cook is playing behind maybe the second best O-line in football behind Indianapolis. I don't think Khalil Mack is going to go off like he did against that piss-poor tackle he played against in Washington. As you can hear from me, Ralph, not only do I like Minnesota in this game, I love Minnesota in this game.
Well, you know, I'm going to tell you Minnesota's lost their last 5 against the spread as a dog. They're 2-8 ATS as an away dog. The Bears have gone 10-3-1 against the spread, including 7-2 as a home favorite. Minnesota, you get them outdoors on grass against a winning team, 0-9-1 against the spread. You have a Bears defense that has had allowed 17 or fewer points 8 straight games. But with that said, I'm going to give you another game in the under. You know, Minnesota 9-24 over/under as a dog. The Bears have been an under team. My official lean on this game is the under.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Ralph. 38 is a very low number in this day and age. But I mean, like, 13-10 would not blow my mind. 30-27 would blow my mind. So, yeah, I'm with you on the under, and I really like Minnesota. Last game, and then we're going to get to the final segment of the show. Jacksonville in Denver. Denver is -3 here. The total is 39 with a couple of 38.5s on the board. I'm going to tell you flat out, Denver's had a bit of tough luck this week. I don't think Jacksonville is a good team. I think they got lucky beating Tennessee. With all that said, I got nothing on the side. I'm playing way under. If you like the under in Minnesota and Chicago, you have to like the under in this game.
Well, I'm going to give you a bad stat for both teams. Denver 0-6-1 as a home favorite. Can they get margin on anyone? We'll see against Jacksonville. Jacksonville, when they're off a double-digit win like they were against a winning team, they're 0-14 against the spread. They're not used to winning and then covering again. It's a situation where, week one, Gardner Minshew, game one for Gardner Minshew, went into Houston, no film, only put up 281 yards. Now there's film, only put up 292 yards against Tennessee. 28 first downs concerns the hell out of me. That is the reason I can't back Jacksonville. 16 first downs against Houston, 12 first downs against Tennessee at home. Unders look sometimes too easy, but when they're too easy and you have Gardner Minshew and Flacco as the quarterbacks, I think they're the right play.
He's Ralph Michaels. I'm the Prez. It's time to get to the last segment of the show. Look, every week I give out some teasers. I'm going to really make this easy, Ralph. This is a betting show. I'm not going to just make shit up. I got nothing. I will be making 0 teasers this week. You didn't even know we were going to do a teaser segment, so I don't know if you have one.
I don't. Because teasers to me are this. If you want to get through 3, you want to get through 7, so if you like a dog that's plus, 1.5 for 2, 2.5 for 3, tease them up. If you like a favorite that's in that 7.5 or 8 range, you tease them down. If not, you just don't force the play. But, I'll tell you what, Prez, I do have some trends and angles, as you probably know. So, shall we start with those and do those?
Let's do those first, then we'll get to a couple of money line bets and the survivor pick. We have 5 minutes left of the show, so Ralph, I hand it to you.
Okay, we talked about the Oakland Raiders. In the first 4 weeks of the season, teams off back-to-back road games, and they lost their first road game and they're a dog of 5 or more. So you have to play 2 straight road games, have lost your last game, you're a dog of 5 or more. Like Oakland, you're 14-0 over-under since 2013. Week 4, Prez, winless teams. What do 0-3 teams do as an away dog? They're ugly as can be. Those away dogs are Washington and Cincinnati. 0-3 away dogs week 4. 21-7 against the spread, 75%. No one wants to bet them. They hang in there. They're 5-1 the last 4 years, including Houston last year over Indy. And finally, week 4, 3-0 favorites have gone 17-9-2. Week 4, 3-0 favorites of 7-1 have gone 10-1 against the spread. And week 3 away favorites overall since 2003 have gone 12-4-1 ATS.
He's Ralph Michaels, and what a show! Ralph, moneyline bets, I'll give you mine. I don't know if you have any, but I like Philadelphia on the money line. And believe it or not, Ralph, I like Cleveland on the money line. I also lean to Buffalo on the money line. That's 2 big money lines. Kelly was giving out like these +2 money lines. I'm like, +2 money lines? What the hell is that? Give me something real, baby. Give me some juice. Give me a Burmese mountain dog.
Well, again, I have no problems with the Browns play. Why? Because look at the value you're getting. The Browns were picked to win the division. The Browns had a higher season win total. This preseason line was like 1 or 2. So you're getting 6 points of value on the Browns. Hey, and I'm also, again, this is only a field goal. I'll take Washington to beat the Giants.
Ralph, Survivor. You don't want to even do this segment, and I understand that. But the bottom line is, I'm in a very expensive Survivor pool, and I need to keep winning. Am I just supposed to take the Chargers here and call it a day, or am I supposed to take the Rams? I have the Rams and the Chargers still available to me. Is that what I do?
Well, again, it's so much to do when you're looking ahead at the schedule, who you have left.
No, I don't care about that, Ralph. Get through each week and worry about the next week later.
Yeah, well, then, Miami's not going to, I would fade Miami until they show some life, but that seems the easy way out. But, sometimes you don't want to overanalyze it when you're looking at a Survivor pool.
Yeah, and then that's my strategy, Ralph. I'm not picking on teams to win. I'm picking against Miami from the start to the finish. Obviously, they will play some teams twice. I won't be able to do it all year, but then I have the New York Jets in my back pocket to bet against. I'm going to take the Chargers as my Survivor pick. Ralph, what an incredible show, man. I really appreciate you doing this. We're going to be doing this every Wednesday. I thought the show was phenomenal. What I really like about this show and doing it with you, Ralph, is that you're so steeped in trends and analytics and systems. You have more information than Gianni the Greek, Marco, Teddy, and Dave Koken combined. And I got more personality than anybody in this industry. Plus, I'm a seeing eye guy. I think we merge really well. I think this is going to be an outstanding show for weeks and years to come. It has been an absolute pleasure, my friend.
Awesome first show, Prez. Appreciate you having me on. We'll talk to you next Wednesday.
Thanks, brother. And I just want to let everybody know real quick, a challenge to all of you people who watch the videos over at our YouTube channel, Wager Talk TV. There is a thumbs up and a thumbs down button. I expect you guys to use the thumbs up button, but the thumbs down button is outright insulting. This is free content. Ralph and I put in a lot of work. Imagine if your child was making a presentation at school in front of their peers, and the teacher turned to their peers and said, guys, thumbs up or thumbs down, and their peers actually gave your kid a thumbs down. All because we don't see you, all because we don't know who you are, doesn't mean it is not ridiculously rude to put a thumbs down. I expect 0 thumbs down. With that said, I know you guys are going to give me a ton of thumbs down just because I said that. But don't! It affects our YouTube rating. No thumbs down! I'm the Prez. We'll see you next week on the NFL Presidential Address.